You might remember us, the ones in the red shirts.
We can't afford guns being the leading cause of death for children and teens in this country.
Whether you're Republicans or Democrats, you can't look away.
We're not going to shut up until we get the change we deserve.
Thoughts and prayers are no longer enough. We need to take action now.
You didn't get this far by saying you can't. You didn't get this far by just being mediocre. You moms demand action, and that's what we demand.
Welcome to Movement Builders, a show about the people ending gun violence in America. All of us.
I'm Kaylin Ford.
And I'm Nikita McDaniel. Y'all, we see you out there fighting the good fight and doing the work, no matter how hard it is. And we appreciate you. Because while we can't control what comes out of the White House, we can control how we respond. And our movement has proven time and time again that we never give up when lives are at stake. And we want you to know that we see you all the time. We see all of the talent and energy that you're bringing to this work, testifying at hearings, meetings with lawmakers, marching out there in the streets, and so much more. And so we have a few shout outs to start off with today.
Hi, it's Valerie from the National Field Team. Just popping in here to tell the Wisconsin Moms Demand Action team how so very proud I am of all of the work that they did. Every year, it seems like we have the election of a lifetime, and this year was no different. But y'all worked so hard to help get Susan Crawford elected, and I cannot tell you how proud I am. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you've done.
Hey, everybody, it's Amy, Organizing Manager for Virginia, Massachusetts, and West Virginia, and I just need to take a minute to shout out my incredible volunteers in Virginia. They threw an incredible rally to kick off their work on elections this year. They have proven time and time again they are unstoppable. They are ready to make an impact this fall. Go, Virginia!
Yes, you all are amazing, and we are so grateful to have you in this movement with us because we know there are so many ways to make an impact in this work, and a lot of them start with those one-on-one conversations that we have about gun safety with other folks in our communities. Today's episode is all about having those conversations with gun owners and non-gun owners alike, because with an estimated 393 million firearms owned by civilians in America, we can't make progress on gun safety without working with everyone. And we are proud to have so many gun owners who are on our staff, who are volunteer leaders, and who are supporters here in our movement.
That's right, Kaylin, because we know that this fight takes all of us. And we also know that with guns being the leading cause of death for kids and teens, it has never been more important to spread the word about how to safely and securely store guns. And guess what? We have two amazing guests to talk with us today on the show.
Yes, we are so honored to have Dr. Elna Nagasako, the statewide community outreach lead for the Hawaii chapter of Moms Demand Action, and Cathi Geeslin, the director of public education programs for the Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund. Cathy's work focuses on the Be Smart program. Welcome, Elna and Cathi, to the show.
Yes, welcome, y'all. Thanks for being here with us. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. Elna and Cathi, we are so grateful to have you in this movement. Tell us what brought you to this work and how long you've been doing this work. And Elna, how about you kick us off?
I can start. It was the Bruin decision in 2022, which was, of course, that Supreme Court decision around the right to carry firearms in public. And it was clearly going to alter Hawaii's gun safety landscape, which had previously made Hawaii one of the safest states in the country. And, you know, I kind of heard a person frame it as an issue of trusting gun owners and let's see what happens. And having just moved back home to Hawaii from Missouri, I felt like I had to speak up and say, I also feel like the people I knew that were gun owners in Missouri were responsible, safety conscious, law-abiding, really good people. And that fact alone wasn't enough to stop the gun deaths that were happening there. So we were talking, you know, 1 death per 7 hours in Missouri compared to 1 every 7 days in Hawaii at that time. So I wrote a commentary about my experience in Missouri, where there were more guns in more places and what that was like. And that connected me to the Hawaii chapter of Moms Demand Action. And it's been 3 years since then.
Wow,
That's
what
amazing.
a rock star. What about you, Cathi?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on today. So my origin story is like a lot of other parents in this country after the tragedy in Connecticut at Sandy Hook School. At the time, my kids, two of my older kids were in kindergarten and first grade. And to be honest, I was paralyzed. I say that often, that I felt really like I didn't know what to do, how to do the next thing, except for, cry. And my husband, who works on Capitol Hill, said, you need to take action. It's really the way you're going to feel like you're doing something and empowered. And I'm so grateful to find Moms Demand Action in those really early days and put my heartbreak and fear into action, and honestly learn so much about just gaping holes in our gun laws across the country and in my home state of Virginia. And that was really powerful. And so I've been in this movement for over a decade.
One of those OG moms, right?
That's right.
She's definitely an OG mom.
That's amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing your story with us. We're so glad to have both of you in this movement. We feel so fortunate to have both of you in this movement and have your time and your talent and your expertise here with us. Elna, I want to talk about some of the most amazing things that you and the Hawaii chapter are doing right now, including passing legislation to create a state-level Office of Gun Violence Prevention and a bill that requires gun owners to keep all firearms securely stored when they're not in use. This is such important work. Tell us what you've been doing and your role in it.
So we have an amazing group of volunteers in Hawaii, including, of course, our state co-leads, our state legislative lead, who have been working tirelessly to support multiple bills this session. So the bill creating an Office of Gun Violence Prevention does a number of things, including it creates a resource bank with data on gun violence, develops a plan to address gun violence, administers a grant program for community-based gun violence interventions, and conducts community awareness campaigns. And it's all specific to Hawaii, which I think is so crucial. And this bill is near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. The first is I've worked in community partnerships in various locations in the country for a while now, and I can tell you that without having that backbone organization to provide some coordination, it's easy to have organizations with like the best of intentions, but duplicating work. Maybe there's smaller community organizations out there that are awesome, but no one outside that neighborhood knows about them, or there are areas with need that, they aren't getting resources because the data's not there to highlight that. And so money and time can just be wasted if things aren't coordinated. So, in this time with everyone's being economically challenged so far, I just feel like from an effectiveness standpoint, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this bill. But the other reason I think is maybe even more important, which is that this is what we're hearing. When I got it and doing outreach and I'm talking to organizations, talking to people, this is what they're asking. They may not call it an Office of Gun Violence Prevention, but they're saying, what does this look like in my neighborhood? What's effective? Who's at risk? What do I do? What are the resources? Who's already working on this? And that's the kinds of things this office can address. Now, I absolutely want to touch on the bill on secure firearm storage. It's interesting to me because it kind of builds on the existing law. The existing law was interesting because it said, secure firearm storage is important, but it kind of had this provision that kind of required a little bit of almost like foretelling, right? Saying, if you anticipate a minor is going to get a hold of that gun, then you need to lock it up. But we all know, right? We don't anticipate everything. And so this kind of clarifies saying, secure firearm storage is important all the time. Obviously, when you're not actually using the firearm. And as to my role in this, as you guys mentioned, I've been serving as state community outreach lead. And to me, that means I work on building partnerships with other organizations so that folks doing child injury prevention, healthcare professionals, folks working on suicide prevention and so forth, it could either be related to legislative advocacy work or, of course, related to the important non-policy education-focused work. And I just feel like, unfortunately, firearm injuries and deaths touch so many parts of our communities that there's so many ways that we can help collaborate with other organizations, help them do their important work in helping Hawaii's communities stay healthy.
Wow. You're so well-spoken and well-versed on our issue, Elna. Thank you. I couldn't imagine someone greater than you being the state community outreach lead for Hawaii. What a great leader. I just want to thank you for that before we move on. And thanks for the great detail that you shared with us. And now I want to take a moment and pass it over to Cathi. Because while Moms does promote secure firearm storage through legislation, let's talk a little bit about Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund and the program called Be Smart, one of my favorites. That helps folks to have those gun safety conversations with their friends, their neighbors, their family, and their fellow parents. And Be Smart is now celebrating 10 years next month. So why don't you tell us all about it, Cathi?
Thank you, Nikita. You are such a Be Smart hero, and I appreciate that introduction. And Elna, thanks for all the work that Hawaii does. It's the important work of volunteers, sharing those messages in community that makes a difference with a program like Be Smart. Like Nikita said, we're hitting 10 years next month, which I can't really believe, but it's been really amazing to see the work that our volunteers and partners do spreading the message. Our program Be Smart, which is one of Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund's program, was created to promote responsible gun ownership, to reduce deaths, injuries, trauma that result when a teen or a child has access to an unsecured firearm. So the Be Smart message is an acronym. So we're using a little positive peer pressure there by reminding people to be smart. And the S is securing all guns in homes and vehicles, which of course is what we're really drilling down on in our conversation today. But also we talk about other components, like the M is modeling responsible behavior around guns. The A is making sure that you ask about unsecured guns in other homes and in vehicles that your child or someone that is in your care might be. The R, which is of course so important and a huge tragic component of gun deaths, is recognizing the role of guns in suicide. And then the part that we're all doing and all taking a role in is this T, telling your peers, telling your friends, telling your family to be smart. And it's been really amazing to see how the message of secure gun storage and Be Smart has spread nationwide, mostly to our grassroots effort. Also, community leaders, local, regional, we have national partnerships, which I encourage people to take a look at on besmartforkids.org. Be Smart's also used in initiatives in all 50 states by entities invested in health, public safety, also law enforcement, education, and more. We have just an endless list. Over 349 of those are in action right now. And, again, thanks to district by district efforts by volunteers and our folks on the ground, we now have secure gun storage, which is life-saving messaging, given to more than 11 million families across the country, which to me is just hugely empowering and important, especially as a parent, knowing the role that schools play in my own life and my children's life. To receive that type of information we know is saving lives.
That's amazing, Cathi. I always get really excited, I don't know about y'all, when I see Be Smart in the wild. So yeah. Our public library in my neighborhood has a big Be Smart poster next to the children's
libraries
section.
Are the best. Libraries really are one of the best.
And, I've got 2 little kids, so unfortunately we sometimes end up in urgent care for some sort of playground-related something. And our urgent care also has Be Smart on the back of the door. So while you're waiting for the doctor, you can see that message. So it's so great to see all the different ways that that message is spread. And it's really thanks to the hard work of your team, Cathi, and all of our amazing volunteers that is out there in the world for people to know and learn from. And I appreciate you talking about the acronym because we know that secure storage is about so much more than gun locks and gun safes, although those are 2 important tools. Tell us about some of the secure storage decisions that gun owners can make to help keep children and teens safe and how you talk about them with folks.
Yeah, so I think at this core, it's about responsibility and safety. And I think always, whenever we talk about this, whenever we bring up Be Smart, whenever we talk about securely storing a firearm, we really lay a foundation of these are principles we can all agree on, right? We all want to make sure that if we can prevent one child gun death or injury, then we should. And I think that foundational principle that has really held strong all the way, we're reflecting back on 10 years now, has always been there. It's just something that everybody can agree on. And I think that's one of the really key components of Be Smart and how we talk about it. And I think at the heart, again, making sure that children and teens and those that shouldn't have access can't access your firearms, right? So knowing that we as a country and as communities and as individuals want to keep our kids and our teens and our schools and our communities safe. And this is a very tangible action, right? So you don't need to change a law. You don't need to change policy. You don't need to go to the state house. You can just talk to your friend or your uncle or your cousin and make sure that they are making small changes in their life. And that is incredibly empowering. And the other thing I would say is when you sort of step back and widen that lens, you know, the work that we've already talked about, really trying to make change on the other side. I'm talking about work that we're doing to educate, but when you think about advocacy, we know that 26 states and DC currently have secure gun storage laws. And since 2015, 12 states have enacted or strengthened their secure storage laws. So I think when you think about, 7 states, Maine, Michigan, New Mexico, I could go on, enacted secure storage laws after having no laws. So when you pair this idea of educating a public, making sure people feel empowered by themselves with good, solid policy, and I think it's just like seatbelts. You can pass a law that says you need to buckle up, but if nobody is reminded or knows about it, then it sort of just is like a tree falling in the woods.
Yes, Cathi, yes. You took me back we go back like rocking chairs, first of all. And when I first joined Moms Demand Action, my kids were little. And Be Smart won my heart. I was always peculiar about letting my kids stay over at other folks' houses. And also just thinking about guns. And if I felt comfortable asking the question about guns being in a home because of Be Smart. And I've learned so much from you all and have tried to share that back out. So thank you so much for sharing all the detail that you did. Now, Elna, I just have to tell you, I had been talking to someone recently, and they shared with me about you tabling at a gun show. And I just could not wait until you were here so that you could share a little bit about the experience and how you talk to folks when you're at gun shows, because sometimes there are people there that may be afraid that we're there to take their guns, and you have to have conversation to help them get their guard down. So I just want to hear a little bit about it.
I'm so happy to share about it. I was so excited to do it. And I want to give a shout out to the amazing Be Smart folks in Illinois who I saw their posting on it. That gave me that little bit of that bump, that courage bump to kind of really go ahead and proceed with it. So tabling at that gun show was like everything that I personally love about Be Smart. So it's being able to come together to talk about like immediate steps, right? That person could take right then and just make our community that much safer. And it's very practical, nitty-gritty discussions. So we had this wonderful gun owner who sponsored us there, meaning he got us a table and he brought his own gun storage equipment. And it spanned like this $5 old school, like metal, big lockbox kind of thing. So he had like these biometric and sort of capacitive keypad cases. So for like smaller ones, for like vehicle travel type situations, he had a slider type safe. So it's meant for the home, meant for that quick access for those folks that kind of have this mindset of, I need my firearm for home defense. And, he stayed the whole time to talk to people about them, which I also learned so much from. People love seeing these devices. I mean, I'm telling you, that slider, we put the keypad in, slider safe would slide open 8 or 9 times out of 10. Someone walking by would like come over and talk. And the majority of the discussion was about super practical questions about battery life. How are things mounted? How much do they cost? And like, where can we buy them? Can we buy them from you? And we're like, oh, sorry, we're not selling these. But that's how excited people were to have those discussions. And we also, of course, had lots of Be Smart literature, and building on the comment about Be Smart is also about raising that recognition of the role of firearms in suicides. We also had that firearm suicide prevention card, as well as some 988 refrigerator magnets. And I have to say that those, so secondary to all the demos, people were super excited again about not so much like the why, like why do we care about firearm suicide prevention, but the what, like what do I do? What can I do? And they love the magnets, and people were super interested in the flip side of that firearm suicide card that talked about what can I do if I care about someone and I'm concerned about gun access? What are the actual practical interventions? And, I don't want to sugarcoat it. There were a few challenging discussions, right? But, because of the way Be Smart is designed, it was pretty easy to say, actually, Be Smart's a 501c3 program, meaning that I actually, as a volunteer there, I'm going to get in trouble if I talk about policy or politics. And that is not what it's about. We're just here to share options so people can make their own decisions about what gun storage devices work for them in their lives and to raise awareness about things like firearm suicide prevention. And that actually went a long ways. People, when I would say that, people would actually thank us for being there.
That's amazing, Elna, and just really inspiring too to bring a gun owner into the fold and have this person there, showing how these devices work. Because sometimes people will say, "Oh, are they complicated?" And to just be able to say in real time, like, "Look, this is how this works." It takes some of the mystery and some of the fear out of it as well. And I love that you were open to doing that and having that experience. I know you're also a physician, and so talk about the sort of public health approach that you take to this work as well, and how that public education fits into that.
So I really love that community health approach because, as was said before, I think that that's something that everyone can come together on, regardless of, what essays we write, in the op-eds or what testimonies we're giving, right, on all different perspectives on an issue. All of us, we want to be safe. We want to feel safe. We want our family to feel safe. We want our friends to be safe. No one wants harm to come to their family or friends. No one wants a community that is having lots of gun deaths. So I think having that health as a starting point, at least for me personally, really goes a long way. In my mindset, we're orienting, we have this common goal. We're in this together. And what we may disagree with or have different perspectives is on the how. And I think with that mindset, then we can say, look, there's going to be some things, even within, right, all of our volunteers, we may have different perspectives on different things, and that's okay. What we can really do is do that health approach of saying, where are we at? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? And what can we agree on? And so that's my whole mindset. And I also think
I love that.
When I'm in my clinic, we pretty much take all comers, right? We're going to care for whomever. And I think that too informs my approach in when I'm talking to people about this.
That's beautiful. I love that common ground. And my next question was for both of you, and you sort of already touched on it a bit, but we know that the majority of people want these kinds of common sense policies. We know that the majority of people, as you so perfectly put it, Elna, want to keep their families and their loved ones and their friends safe. But sometimes I think it can feel awkward to start secure storage conversations for some folks. How do each of you sort of kick those conversations off? Any tips that you have for starting from a place of common ground or kind of getting to a place of understanding with folks from all walks of life?
I would say it's a practice. It's like any good habit that we all want to have. The more we do it, the less we honestly think about it. It just kicks in. Yeah. And having done this as my children have grown, there are different ways. So when they were younger, it was just part of all the other things. My two youngest daughters were terrified of dogs. I mean, just terrified. So when they were going to a new home, I needed to ask if there was going to be a dog there so we could prepare or make arrangements. So as part of my question about dogs, I would just ask about firearms. And honestly, having something paired with the question just made it feel more natural. And I would always offer the information about myself. So I would ask the question, and then I would write also, generally via text, and I would say, and for your awareness, we actually don't have any pets and we don't own any firearms. So just sort of putting a really comfortable spin on it. Now I have teenagers. I have a lot of teenagers in my house, it feels like. I've got 3 of them. And the questions change. Now I'm having to text and say, are their parents home? Is the liquor cabinet locked up? Other types of concerns I have. Who's going to be driving? Is there a designated driver? Right? Like all those kinds of questions come up differently. And I just added into those conversations as well, right? So I think for a lot of people, it's just making it part of our regular routine. And I think Elna said it best that volunteers are doing this across the country. And that alone is what's helping to make it non-polarizing. Because it sounds different in Hawaii than it does in Virginia, than it does in Illinois, than it might in Alaska. But if we're all asking these questions and making them what is expected instead of the exception, then I think more people are inclined to just do the same thing.
I definitely I know that in 10 years, we have made a huge impact in this country by just asking the question, And I am looking forward to the work that we continue to do because it continues to make a change. My next question is really for both of you, and no one comes on this show without being asked these questions. There's a lot going on. This work can be really heavy. And right now, there's a lot of things coming out of the White House, decisions every day that could just be overwhelming to us. What do you do to take care of yourself on a consistent basis? How about you start, Elna?
I love your phrasing of it because I am terrible at this. And one of the things I am trying to do to take care of myself on a consistent basis is block out time, like just for myself and seeing that as something legitimate. And that could either be time to myself, whether that's reading. I also do a certain kind of it's called la hala weaving, where you can make hats from a certain plant.
Wow.
And all of that, right, requires carving out time. Yes. And also, even when I'm doing smart or other kinds of work, maybe I'm thinking about a presentation, but I need to clear my schedule just to think about it, right? And not have interruptions. And what I was realizing was a barrier to it that I'm trying to address is I would schedule right over that time. If I had something blocked out on my calendar, like talking with you lovely people, I would never have scheduled over that. But boy, if something came up, I'd be like, well, it was just my stuff. And I am really trying to buckle down and not do that, to value that time that is just for me. It's a work in progress.
I'm proud of you. I was about to say, let me find out that I need to be the one to text you every so often just to make sure you're not scheduling over that time.
I love that.
Okay, don't be surprised.
That resonated so much with me too, because I think that we can easily shift ourselves down that list of priorities, especially that self-care time can feel maybe frivolous or, like you said, flexible to the point that it gets rescheduled but never actually rescheduled. And so you've given me ideas, Elna, of how I'm going to do that. I'm going to be better about that too, because I also do that. Then you get to the end of the week and you're like, why am I so frazzled? Why am I so fried? It's like, well, you skipped all your blocks of time where you were going to recharge your battery. So thank you for sharing that. Cathi?
Well, it's funny that we're using schedule, and I mentioned habits before, because I think the only way I commit to things is if I have an obligation to someone, if it's scheduled in, if I've sort of made it a standing appointment, for lack of a better word. I mean, honestly, right after we sort of headed into this darker period, I made a plan with a small group of friends to host a monthly craft club, which crafting and art is just one of those things that brings me a lot of joy. And honestly, I don't find time to do it. If I don't have an obligation, if I don't have it scheduled. And that has been, those evenings once a month have been one of my biggest, pockets of joy. And similarly, I found a little group in my neighborhood to go on early morning walks with. Again, I'm not the kind of person that's going to get up and go on an early morning walk if it's just me. But if I'm meeting people, I do it. And I find so much joy in that togetherness and being with people. So I find the scheduling, I have to do it. If I just think, oh, tomorrow I'll get up and go for a walk, or I'll pull out my watercolors, that would never happen. So finding an obligation, finding someone to do it with has really brought me a lot of joy in some of these harder times.
I love that for you, Cathi. You deserve that. You're so worthy.
Thanks, Nikita.
I love the idea of both of you mentioned, crafting, something to do with your hands, something physical. Elna, tell us a little bit more about this traditional weaving. It sounds amazing.
Yes, I was about to say, teach me.
Yes. So I'm going to say that I am just very much a beginner in it. I've only been doing it for maybe a year or two. Whereas my kumu and the other folks in this, this comes out out of a long lineage and tradition. And really it encompasses both harvesting the leaves, preparing the leaves, cutting the leaves, and then weaving them. It could be into hats or into other kinds of objects. And like everyone's been mentioning, I think something that maybe takes us out of our head or takes us out of our worries and really is focused on the doing and being present. Because if I'm distracted, my hats have lots of mistakes anyway, but like it's going to be worse if I'm not focused, if I am not present, if I'm not just
That's
appreciating the feel of the fiber in my hand.
Right.
And what I'm doing with it. So yeah, and if you guys are ever out in Hawaii, I can't teach you because I'm not skilled enough, but I can direct you to a wonderful class.
Sounds like a reason to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
It is a reason to go to Hawaii. And then also my mom was just over here churning. I know we're going to every other year for GFU, but when we have GFU, we have like these different, sessions where you can do things like that. And you just said you're not that good at it, but I'm like, you got a little time to practice and keep going. And we're not asking you to be perfect. We want you to be with us. So anyway, just my mind over here working. I just appreciate you sharing with us too about that. I really want to learn myself. I'm a crafter too. This show's not about me, but when you start talking about crafting, I'm all excited. So y'all got me excited over here.
I love it.
Yes.
I'm not a crafter, but I want to be a crafter, and all of this is inspiring me. And Elna, I also loved what you said about, having part of the craft be gathering the leaves, right? And you're not gathering the leaves on the same day that you're probably weaving. Mm-hmm. And there's that kind of lesson that carries through our work too, where sometimes it takes time for us to do this work. Sometimes it takes time for us to see the effect of 10 years of Be Smart conversations, right? They didn't happen overnight. And that's really powerful. What about any favorite books or shows or podcasts that y'all love or that you'd recommend that you're listening to, reading, watching right now?
So for those that know me, know I'm a real Hallmark Channel girl. I like predictability. I like a happy ending. So I'm an audiobook person, and I've been listening to a lot of books that are in that genre, like Abby Jimenez or Emily Henry, that give me just a nice happy love story, which I think is a good counterbalance to how hard this work can be sometimes.
Yes.
I am in a very robust book club that I've been in for over 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And so they push me to read stuff I wouldn't normally read. And this month we read a book called The Briar Club by Kate Quinn, which I can't stop singing the praises of. It's phenomenal and not at all Hallmarky. Okay. It's about the McCarthy era in the U.S. Actually, in D.C. it takes place, but it's phenomenal. So there's my current recommendation.
I'm about to add that on my library app on my phone.
It's so good.
Thank you.
And for me, I love food and I love travel. I don't travel as much as I maybe want to, but so the coffee table book I've got it's called like Gastro Obscura. It's from Atlas, a website called Atlas Obscura, but it's about all of these different food traditions in various regions of the world that are maybe a little bit unique or not as well known outside that region.
Oh, that's awesome. Elna, you and our other amazing Moms Demand Action volunteer leaders are really the heart and soul of this movement. As Cathi said, none of this progress would be possible without our grassroots volunteers. You all are amazing. We are so grateful for you out there doing this work. I know that you've been with us, like you said, since the Bruin decision. What's been one of your favorite memories as a volunteer so far?
So I have lots of favorite memories, but I'd say a recent one was actually walking around the booths at this gun show and talking with other people about their booths, right? And of course, there's local gun stores, and they were super helpful about talking about, hey, they're the secure gun storage devices we have and so forth. But, I love, like, there was a camping equipment booth, and there was this amazing demo of, I don't even know if I can describe it, it was a portable commode privacy curtain that was sort of this wearable thing. And it got a lot of demos, and I was, like, mesmerized by this. And there were food sellers. There were also historical displays. Like there was one about the 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team for the highly decorated Japanese-American units that fought for the U.S. in World War II. And, just talking with all these people about their interests, it just sort of reminded me that they're our neighbors, they're our colleagues, they're our family members. And in that room, there's going to be a whole range of views on policy. But we can still talk and relate in other ways. And I feel like, it's such a time, right? We've alluded to this big, real differences on like these critical issues. And I don't want to minimize those. Those are real differences. And at the same time, to me, it was just like a reminder, an anchor that we can still connect. We can all still be together and it can be okay.
Elna, that is why I know we're going to win in the end for sure. You hear what you just said? You walked around. You took the time to look and listen and hear other people who may have different perspectives from us. But that's called relationship building. And it's like one step at a time, and not being afraid to talk to people or set this barrier, because we're not going to win that way. So just your spirit and energy, like that spirit and energy is what's going to help us continue to win. So I just got to just thank you again. Everybody told me you were amazing. Like, I knew you were, but like, you are really, really, really winning my heart today. Thank you for all that you've given us here. Cathi, I've known you since I joined this movement as a volunteer leader. Even before, like, Be Smart was like a, what do they call it? A twinkle in our eyes. Like, it was just there. So you've definitely been here doing this work for a long time. This may be a difficult question, but I'm pretty sure you can answer it. Can you share with me at least one moment from your time here that gives you the hope to keep going?
This is a very hard question. I feel like my brain sort of spins when I try to think back over the decade plus. There's so many times that I've just been so overwhelmed by the work that the volunteers are doing in their states, or an amazing rally or event, and having sort of been part of or watched so many of these over the years, I don't know that I have a favorite. One that always comes to mind, though, is from very early when I was doing this work. I honestly don't remember if I was an organizer yet or if I was a volunteer, but we had a meeting with then Majority Leader Senator Harry Reid on the Hill. And I went with Shannon Watts, our founder, and some other people to this meeting. And my son and my daughter came, and remember what I said, they were pretty little when I started. Mm-hmm. And so I had a very antsy little boy in this very fancy senator's office, because we were in his nice Capitol office that the majority leader gets. And in the middle of our meeting, my son decided he needed to use the restroom. And so we were in the outer office. They took him into the inner office. I didn't know where he went. The whole thing could have really gone sideways because, I mean, no filter, that would be my son. And he came back out and said, "That's a fancy bathroom." So, but, you know, I think sort of that also harkens to the fact that I'm always just, and still feel this way, so moved by the work that the young people are doing. Students, my own daughter started a Students Demand Action chapter with her classmates at her high school. And that gives me so much hope, the work that Students Demand Action is doing across the country, just to know that, you know, sort of being on the other side, that there's young people coming up that care about this, that are working hard, that are thinking about how it impacts their lives. And that, I just think, overall is one of the most powerful things that I have seen happen come out of this movement and this organization.
Beautiful. That was a special memory to share too. And it also just reminds me of the spirit of our movement to be inclusive of our children. Even when we used to have stroller jams, we used to bring our kids.
That's right.
I would love for someone to be like, "I don't have a babysitter." I'd be like, "Bring them with you. We got a lot of moms and aunties here. We're going to go together." And that spirit has led us into all of these years of work, and we try to keep and maintain that culture because it's really important. So I really want to thank you both, Elna and Cathi, for being here. And I want to give you the opportunity before you leave to share anything else that you would like for our amazing volunteer leaders to know.
And so for me, I'd love to share two things.
Yes,
please. Yes.
There may be some of you listening who think, gosh, I care about ending gun violence, but I worry I don't fit in. I don't know the right thing to say. I don't like talking about laws and policy. And I just want to tell whoever you are that is maybe thinking this, that if you care about working on a healthier community, there is a place for you here. You have a piece of the puzzle no one else has. No one else has. So don't be afraid to get involved. And maybe it's your voice that is needed at this moment at such a time as this. And then the second thing is just thank you. Just thank you all for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Elna.
I mean, who could say it better than that? That was perfection, Elna.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I can't express my gratitude enough, because the reason that Be Smart and just talking, making these conversations relatable are because we have such amazing volunteers across the country in different types of communities that are thinking about how it will resonate to to their friends and to their neighbors. And by really making sure that we have so many voices, that's why we've been able to share this message, make it part of everybody's daily fabric. And my gratitude is just immeasurable for that kind of work. So I also need to say the biggest, widest, heartiest thank you for all the work.
No, and we need to say thank you to both of you because the work that you're doing is so important. The conversation that we had today has left me feeling super inspired and fired up and given me lots of different thoughts of how to start those conversations with folks in my own life. So an immense amount of gratitude to both of you, Elna and Cathi. Thank you for being with us on the show. And thank you for all the things that you're doing to make this country safer for all of us.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you both.
You're both amazing. Y'all, I loved having Elna and Cathi on the show with us today, breaking down how they have gun safety conversations. And I actually learned a lot, got a lot of ideas about how I want to take things back into my own community.
Yes, and I think talking to each other and finding common ground right now has never been more important, but it also can feel really hard, especially when there are so many forces that seem to want to divide us. We know that the majority of Americans are with us and wanting to keep their families and their communities safe, and that's why our fight continues no matter what. Some of these lessons from Elna and Cathi today I'm going to take with me into my own life as well.
Yes, Kaylin. So thank you all for listening. And remember, this podcast is our community. So keep sending us your thoughts, feedback, and stories to movementbuilders@everytown.org. And that again is movementbuilders@everytown.org.
Please keep sharing this podcast with your fellow volunteer leaders and team members too. Tell us what topics you want to see in future episodes and let us know what you think. Thanks for listening to Movement Builders. I'm Kaylin.
And I'm Nikita. Thank you for all you do to save lives. It's working.